Belousov, and we are going to talk about hardware, the equipment that is the basis for the service operations. My name is Konstantin Belousov. I'm working for the in non-government fund in the DB Foundation, and my function is developing FreeBSD. Because of my functions, I work with the server hardware. I'm going to tell you about the very interesting trends in the hardware market. So as an example, I would give you the case of configuration of a hardware profile of the company that provides services to Holland country. The country is rather small, and the zone is rather small. They have about 1.5 million domain names. About 11,000 of them have signatures. So and the memory in the server is about 1 gigabyte. Any unicast server receives about 1,000 inquiries per second, but processor load is 0. So the computer actually doesn't experience exposures to any loads. They have 4 unicast servers and 2 clouds with unicast machines. I can't explain why they have such asymmetry. They have seven machines in one cloud and about 120 in another. They just use on the shelf servers, and utilization of each server is 2 to 7%, and most of them work in the peak when the servers are updated. In all other time, they work at 0 level load. So actually, I usually say is this is a stupid approach, because such huge capacity is not needed to the servers. They spend enormous resources, both in money, in energy, in cooling, just for nothing. At some point, they are really needed when they face peak lows, but contemporary processes are too strong for such processes. So the hardware producers noticed that trend, and they decided to invent something more adequate, to invent this server that doesn't need such huge computing capacities. I'm talking about not about NPT server, but something that just replies to ordinary common inquiries. It was Sun were the first. They used Spark architecture. The servers were too expensive for that purposes. Just recently, Kabel companies started MIS-based Octeon processors. The scalability was about several hundred nucleus and 1 crystal, but these processes appeared in network computer, but not in network server. So you cannot go to the shop and buy some computer working on Octeon. Telera is another hardware. It was bought she was bought by Mellanox. They produce very, again, parallel but very slow 1 nuclear processes. So you can buy it in the ordinary shop. but the hardware you will buy would be very specialized. It wouldn't be able to work as a servers. You wouldn't be able to install operational system because they can run only very specialized software. ARM company, which is basically known as a producer for processor for telephones and tablets, they decided to intervene the hardware market. They updated their architecture, and their application profile allows to operate huge operational system. So they made the set of instruction very comfortable, which includes the instruction very similar to Intel's IS extension. It's about 2 GB per second for one nucleus. They were the first to introduce standardized hardware. They have for example, for us Raspberry Pi, you have to install your own assembly of operational system. For RV8, it is more or less standardized. So eventually you can produce such a unified operational system, which will can be installed on any servers supported by RV8. They managed to negotiate. It was a long process between Linear, ARM, and some other players in order so that to use ICPA, then and some other things, and they did that. So actually right now, on the 1st of December, the new computers appeared in the shop. You can get them on the shelf. Couple, they developed Thunder Weeks, which is very similar to the Octeon, but it is based on RV8 architecture. It is scalable it is nuclear scalable, so it is about 100 nucleus, and they have 3 by 40 gigabyte interfaces with the possibility to prioritize different traffic in it. It will be processed in the hardware. The Gigabyte company, who is the famous producer, and they started manufacturing the machines, new machines. They allow you to assemble your own architecture. And unexpectedly, NMD decided to work with ARM-V8, but they used the standard ARM Cortex, and right today they started the low-end server costing $600 on RV8 architecture. In order for you to understand what's that, I provided the comparison of computing capability within the same pricing range. But the price for Kalma is early adopter. If this architecture will go up, in my opinion, the price will go down 3 to 4 times. It doesn't cost as it is announced now. It is just the most recently they are just hot, and that's why they are so expensive. So you can see that assembly of compilator. It is a stupid test, but it is a demonstrative one. 20 hours in Kavim, it is against one hour on Inter, but at the same time your processor is not hot, and you can you can stand the peak loads. FreeBSD can work on all that, like in Linux. It means that you receive binary updates to the system. You do not assemble anything by your own. You get the assembled packages for this architecture. And right now, out of 26 packages available in the port system, 20,000 are assembled in the company, and they do their best to get it perfect in order to get all 26,000 assembled on the site. You will avoid several security problems because of binary updating, and all necessary applications are supported by IBRSD, by the vendor, or with the maintainer, port maintainer, who works directly with the upstream. So just look at on the shelf for such hardware, and you will save some money just in the amount of buying and then for maintenances. And all the leading companies understand that this they started system on chip computers. They have the built-in several gigabyte interfaces. They have serial ATA or serial SCSI, different types of adapter. It is about the same range of price and capabilities and capacities. So just take it into consideration when you go to plan buying new hardware. Thank you very much. I learned a lot of new things about ARM, and recently Taras has some question. I would like, first of all, to thank you for FreeBSD for our cluster. Unicast works based on FreeBSD, and I wanted to ask you, as far as I understood, you cooperate quite closely with the Dutch colleagues. So which servers do they use? Actually, honestly, I don't know. Erwin Lysen is Dmitry knows him better. I just ran upon him recently, and he conveyed his best regards. So actually, they use the processors you can buy in the shops. It's UPI 5 or something like that. Actually, because from time to time we have to update the service, and I'm looking for the simplest processors, because they don't have any significant loads. And one more question: the things you were talking about. You told you are on shops. Are they produced in the industrial 19 inches boxes? It's what I was talking about. It is 1 unit box. Where is it installed? In laboratory, somewhere in the laboratory? I don't think they were imported in Ukraine, have been imported. They started to manufacture them just 1 month ago. So I just know that they use it in New York, as I remember. So the USA. Thank you. Are there any questions from the audience to the speaker?